In the distant future, humanity had expanded beyond Earth and found itself among the stars, mingling with countless alien species. It was an age of exploration, intergalactic trade, and surprising encounters. One of the most unexpected roles to emerge in this new era was that of a human janitor. This wasn't the typical janitor who sweeps floors and scrubs toilets. No, this was someone who cleaned the most advanced, alien ships, vessels that had technology and materials far beyond human understanding. At first glance, it might seem like a simple job, one that only required keeping the ship neat and orderly. But as the story goes, this janitor would soon find out that his role on an alien ship would be anything but ordinary. His name was unimportant. In fact, he was known simply as the Human. It didn't matter where he came from, what his past was, or what he did back on Earth. What mattered was the way he approached his work, and his ability to clean a ship like no one, or no alien, could ever do before. The spaceship he was assigned to was unlike anything humans had ever seen. It was sleek, large, and built with materials that seemed to shift and change in the light. The walls shimmered, and the floors seemed to absorb sound, creating a quiet and calm atmosphere. The alien species that owned the ship were incredibly advanced, so advanced, in fact, that they didn't see the need for things like traditional cleaning. Their ship was pristine without any effort. Or so they thought. The Human was introduced to the aliens aboard this ship by his superiors at the company he worked for. The company specialized in cleaning advanced spaceships for alien species, a service that had become more and more in demand as intergalactic trade flourished. Despite the advanced technology on these ships, they still required maintenance and upkeep, and that's where the Human came in. His job was to clean the ship thoroughly, making sure it remained in perfect condition for the aliens. The aliens, on the other hand, were a bit skeptical. They had never seen a human before. They were curious about him, but also a little dismissive. After all, how could a human possibly understand the intricacies of their advanced technology and culture? But the Human didn't let this faze him. He had a job to do, and he intended to do it well. He started with the basics, wiping down the surfaces, dusting the floors, and cleaning the air ducts. At first, the aliens watched him with amusement. They had technology that could clean their ship in the blink of an eye, so they wondered what this Human could possibly offer. But the Human didn't just do the bare minimum. He took his time, paying attention to every detail, even in areas that seemed unnecessary. He noticed small things that the aliens had overlooked, areas where dust had gathered, faint marks on the walls, or spots on the windows that could only be seen at certain angles. As the days turned into weeks, the Human continued to work on the ship, and the aliens continued to observe him. They were fascinated by his methods, his attention to detail, and the way he treated their ship with the utmost care. They began to realize that, while they had the technology to maintain their ship, it was the Human who had truly brought out its full potential. His work wasn't just about cleanliness, it was about respect. Respect for the ship, respect for the work, and respect for the aliens who had entrusted him with such an important task. But even as the aliens began to understand the Human's unique approach, they still couldn't quite grasp the significance of his work. After all, they had technology that could clean their ship in an instant. So why did the Human's method seem so much better? Why was it that even their most advanced systems couldn't achieve the same results? The answer, as they would soon discover, lay in the Human's perspective. While the aliens saw their ship as a machine, a tool for travel and trade, the Human saw it as something more. To him, it was a masterpiece, an intricate, delicate creation that deserved to be treated with the utmost care and respect. It wasn't just about removing dirt, it was about understanding the soul of the ship, and through his work, the Human had managed to bring out that soul in a way the aliens never could. And so, as the Human continued his work aboard the alien ship, he unknowingly began to change the way the aliens viewed their own technology. His dedication, his passion, and his unique approach to cleaning had opened their eyes to something they had never considered before, the true value of the things they had created. And little did they know, this would be the beginning of an even greater journey, one that would take them beyond the stars and into realms they had never imagined. As the days passed, the human continued his work on the alien ship, and it wasn't long before the crew began to notice the change. The ship, once a symbol of their advanced technology, had transformed into something more, a vessel that radiated care and attention, as though it had been crafted by a master. The aliens couldn't help but be captivated by the perfection he had achieved. What had once been simply a tool for their travels had become a thing of beauty. The most striking change, however, was the aliens' realization that they had never truly understood their own ship. Despite their brilliant minds and advanced technology, they had overlooked the finer details, the subtle intricacies that made their ship special. They had been so focused on efficiency, on function, that they hadn't taken the time to appreciate the beauty in the design. Now, as they walked through the ship's corridors, they could see the details, the smoothness of the walls, the sheen of the floors, the way the light danced off the surfaces. It was as though the ship had come alive. The human's approach to cleaning was more than just physical, it was almost spiritual. He didn't simply wipe away dirt or scrub the floors, he treated every surface with respect, carefully and thoughtfully. His hands, though simple, moved with purpose, as if he could sense the ship's needs. To the aliens, it was as though the human had unlocked some hidden understanding of their ship, an understanding that they had never considered. And yet, despite their admiration for the human's work, the aliens could not shake a feeling of unease. It was a feeling they had never experienced before. They were used to being the ones who controlled everything, the ones with the superior technology, the ones who knew best. But the human's work had challenged that notion. It had made them question whether they truly understood their own creations as well as they thought. One day, the head of the alien crew approached the human. He had been watching him work, observing the care and precision with which he cleaned every inch of the ship. At first, the alien had thought it was just a fluke, that the human's work was merely the result of luck or simple routine. But now, after seeing the results over and over again, he realized that there was something more at play. "I must ask," the alien began, his voice measured, "how do you do it? How do you make our ship look like this? It is beyond anything our technology could achieve." The human paused for a moment, wiping a cloth across the floor. He didn't look up at the alien immediately, but when he did, there was a slight smile on his face. "It's not about the technology," he said simply. "It's about understanding the ship, understanding what it needs. Every surface, every corner has its own character. You can't just clean it with machines or tools, you have to feel it, almost as if the ship is speaking to you." The alien looked puzzled. "Speaking to you?" The human nodded. "Yes. It's like when you walk into a room. You can tell when something's off, maybe the lighting isn't right, or the air feels stale. I just listen for that. I pay attention to the small things that most people overlook." The alien stood in silence for a long time, his mind racing. He had always prided himself on his race's advanced capabilities, but now he was faced with the realization that there was more to their creations than they had realized. Could it be that a human, with no advanced technology or special training, had uncovered something they had missed? "This is beyond my understanding," the alien finally admitted. "But I think you may be right. There's something about the ship that we have not fully appreciated." The human didn't respond, but his expression softened. He wasn't interested in boasting about his skills. All he wanted was to make the ship as perfect as it could be, to give it the care it deserved. However, his words had made the alien think, perhaps for the first time, the importance of not just technology, but the way one approached the things they created. Over the following days, the aliens began to engage with the human in ways they hadn't before. They asked him about his methods, about his philosophy of cleaning. The crew would watch him work, not just in silence, but with curiosity. They observed how he worked on the smallest areas, as if he was cleaning the very soul of the ship. The human had turned his job into an art, one that the aliens had never considered before. Slowly, they began to adopt some of his techniques. They started paying more attention to the smallest details of the ship, taking extra care where they had once been content with just maintaining functionality. They learned that sometimes, it wasn't about efficiency, it was about connection, about treating something with respect and understanding its deeper value. The ship began to feel different to them. It was no longer just a machine to get from one place to another. It was something more. It was a masterpiece, something worth preserving and caring for. The crew began to ask themselves questions they had never thought of before. Why had they always relied on technology to do the work for them? Was there something that their superior intellect had overlooked? And if a human could bring out such a transformation, what else might they have been missing in their approach to other aspects of their lives? The change was slow but profound. They were no longer just cleaning the ship, they were learning to see it in a new light, to appreciate it as something far greater than a mere tool. It was a lesson in humility, a reminder that sometimes, it was the smallest and simplest things that held the most value. And for the human, this was enough. He didn't need recognition or praise. He simply wanted to do his job well and make the ship a place where everyone, human and alien alike, could find a sense of peace and respect. He had brought something unique to this journey, something that no one else had seen or understood. And in doing so, he had not only transformed the ship, but had begun to transform the way the aliens saw themselves and their creations. The ship was clean. But more than that, it had become something that connected them all, alien and human alike, on a deeper level. It was a small victory, but a victory nonetheless. And the human was content with that. As time went on, something began to change among the alien crew. It was subtle at first, almost unnoticeable. The way they spoke to the human, once laced with doubt and skepticism, had transformed into something warmer, more respectful. They no longer viewed him simply as a worker, a janitor who had been hired to clean their ship. He had become something more, a teacher, a mentor, even a symbol of a deeper truth that they had missed for centuries. The human's presence aboard the ship had begun to shift their understanding of not just the ship itself, but of their entire approach to life and work. The aliens had always prided themselves on their vast knowledge and their advanced technology. Their civilization had mastered countless sciences, and they had traveled to the farthest reaches of the galaxy. But in all their advancements, they had overlooked one essential truth: sometimes, the most important things weren't about knowledge or technology. Sometimes, they were about something simpler, something that could only be understood through experience, empathy, and attention to detail. It was in these quiet moments, when the aliens would stop and watch the human work, that the change began. They saw how he took such care with every task, how he treated each part of the ship as if it were sacred. There was no rush in his movements, no impatience. The human worked with the same rhythm and patience, whether he was cleaning the mess hall or scrubbing the engine room. Each task was done with the same level of attention and respect. The crew began to imitate his approach. They no longer rushed through their duties or relied solely on their automated systems. Instead, they took the time to truly understand what they were doing, to feel the process rather than just go through the motions. They started working together with a newfound sense of harmony, something that had never been present before. They saw their ship, and even their world, in a different light. But the most profound change was not just in their work ethic, it was in their perception of the human. They began to realize that, despite being a mere human, he had something that they had lacked all along. It wasn't just his talent for cleaning, it was his ability to see the deeper connection between things. He had a unique perspective that allowed him to see the value in everything, no matter how small or seemingly insignificant. It was something the aliens had lost in their pursuit of efficiency and perfection. One day, as the human finished his work in the ship's navigation room, the captain of the crew approached him. The captain, who had been particularly skeptical of the human's methods at first, had grown to respect him in ways he couldn't have imagined. He had watched the transformation of the ship and the crew, and he had come to understand that it wasn't just about cleaning. It was about a mindset, a way of looking at the world and understanding the value of even the smallest of things. "You've changed the way we see our ship," the captain said, his voice filled with awe. "We've always taken pride in its perfection, in the way it functions. But now, we realize that perfection is not just about efficiency. It's about the way we treat it, the way we interact with it. Your work, it's made us see that." The human smiled, but he didn't say anything. He knew that this was more than just a compliment. It was a realization, a deep shift in understanding that the crew had come to on their own. The captain continued, his tone softer now. "You've shown us that there is a value in patience, in taking the time to appreciate the little things. And I think, for the first time, we see our ship as something more than just a machine. It's a living, breathing part of us, something that deserves our care and respect. It's not just a tool for travel. It's a reflection of who we are." The human nodded, his eyes gentle. It was clear that he understood the significance of the captain's words. He had never needed to explain his approach to cleaning. His actions had spoken for themselves. And now, the aliens had finally understood what he had been doing all along. The captain paused for a moment, as if searching for the right words. "Perhaps there is more we can learn from you," he said thoughtfully. "We have relied on our technology for so long, thinking that it was the answer to everything. But maybe the true answer lies in something simpler, something more human." The human chuckled softly, but there was no arrogance in his tone. "I don't think it's about being human," he said. "It's about being mindful. We all have the ability to look at things differently, to appreciate the beauty in the simplest of tasks. It's just a matter of paying attention." The captain stood silently for a moment, reflecting on the human's words. It was as if a veil had been lifted from his eyes. The ship, once just a tool for their journeys, had become something far more meaningful. The captain had always known that the ship was vital to their survival, but now he understood that it was more than that. It was a part of them, a part of the greater universe that they were a part of. As the crew continued to observe the human and the changes he had brought about, they began to approach their work with a renewed sense of purpose. They didn't just clean or maintain the ship, they nurtured it, cared for it as they would an old friend. They treated every surface with respect, and even their automated systems began to function with greater efficiency, as if they, too, understood the new approach. The ship had become a symbol of something greater than technology or advancement. It had become a symbol of connection, between the aliens and their ship, between the crew and the human who had taught them so much, and even between all living things in the universe. It was a reminder that sometimes, it wasn't the most advanced tools or the most sophisticated minds that made a difference, it was the simple act of caring, of paying attention to the small details, and of approaching life with respect and humility. And as the human continued his work, quietly and steadily, he became more than just a janitor. He became a bridge, between species, between technology and humanity, and between the idea of a simple task and the profound wisdom it could hold. As the weeks passed, the human's presence aboard the ship became more integral. The crew, once aloof and indifferent, now saw him as an essential part of their daily lives. It wasn't just about the cleaning anymore. It was about something deeper, something that had taken root in the hearts and minds of the alien crew. They had begun to understand the value of taking their time, of paying attention to the details, and, most importantly, of respecting their ship as something more than just a vehicle. One evening, after a long day of work, the captain gathered the crew in the main common area of the ship. They had all come to admire the human for his unique approach to life and work. They had learned not just how to clean the ship, but how to live with it. The captain had invited the human to join them for a meal, something that had never happened before. It was a gesture that spoke volumes. This wasn't just about a worker being invited to eat with the crew, it was an acknowledgement of the bond they had developed. The human sat quietly at the table, his plate of food in front of him, but it wasn't the meal that seemed to matter most to him. It was the conversation, the simple act of being included in something that, up until now, had been reserved for the aliens alone. As they ate, the captain spoke, addressing the crew with a tone of sincerity and respect. "We've all seen what the human has done for us, for our ship," the captain began. "It's more than just his skill in cleaning. He's taught us something important, something we had forgotten. We, as a species, have always prided ourselves on our advanced technology and intellect, but the human has reminded us that there's more to this universe than efficiency and knowledge." The crew nodded in agreement. They could all feel the shift that had taken place on board. They had grown closer to one another, not just as colleagues, but as a true team. They began to see themselves as caretakers of the ship, responsible not only for its function but for its well-being. And much of this change could be attributed to the human's influence. "We may have the power to control this ship's systems with ease," the captain continued, "but we must remember that our connection to it is not just mechanical. It's emotional, too. We've been treating it as a tool, something to simply use and maintain. But it's more than that. It's a part of us now. And that is thanks to our human friend." The human glanced up, a humble smile on his face, but he didn't speak. He didn't need to. The crew had already come to understand him in a way that words could never express. The aliens had learned that respect for the ship, the people, and even themselves came not from control, but from understanding and mindfulness. That night, as the crew settled in for the evening, the ship seemed quieter than usual. The hum of the engines was softer, more soothing. It was as though the ship itself was at peace, content with the care it was receiving. The crew had made a silent vow that they would never take their ship for granted again. The human had taught them to appreciate it in a way they never had before. But there was still something more the human had to offer. It wasn't just about respecting the ship or taking pride in their work, it was about the larger lesson he had taught them, the importance of empathy and connection in everything they did. The human had shown them that their intelligence and technology, no matter how advanced, could never replace the simple act of understanding and caring for the world around them. One of the younger crew members, who had been particularly quiet through the entire process, approached the human the next morning. This crew member had always been the most skeptical of the human's methods, but now, after seeing the results, they couldn't help but feel a shift in their own thinking. They were struggling to put their thoughts into words. "Why do you do it?" the crew member asked hesitantly. "Why do you take so much time and care with something as simple as cleaning? You could be done in half the time if you used our machines, but you don't. You treat it like it's something precious." The human paused in his work, looking at the young alien with a thoughtful expression. "It's because I see it as precious," he said simply. "I see everything that way. A ship, a person, a task, it all has its own value. It's easy to forget that in the rush of things. But when you slow down and really look at something, you realize it's worth more than just the surface. You see the life in it. You see the meaning." The young crew member nodded slowly, digesting the human's words. "I think I understand," they said, still unsure, but deeply moved. "It's not just about what something is. It's about how you treat it." The human smiled softly, resuming his work. "Exactly," he replied. As the crew member walked away, they felt a sense of peace settle within them. They didn't fully understand everything the human had taught them, but they knew they had begun a journey that would change how they viewed their world, and themselves. There was still much to learn, but the foundation had been laid. They knew that they had already begun to grow in ways they hadn't anticipated. The ship, once a cold, mechanical structure, now felt like a living part of the crew's family. It was as if they had awakened to a new way of seeing the universe, one where everything had its own story, its own purpose. The crew had discovered that technology and intelligence were only part of the equation. The true strength lay in the connections they made with the world around them and the care they gave to the things that mattered most. And so, day after day, the human continued his work, not just as a janitor but as a catalyst for change. He didn't need to try. His actions spoke for themselves, and in doing so, he had transformed not just a ship, but an entire crew. They would never forget the lessons he had taught them, and neither would their ship. As the days turned into weeks, the relationship between the human and the alien crew deepened. The crew had become accustomed to the human's presence, and his impact on them had become undeniable. It was no longer just about the ship, or the cleaning, but the way his actions had inspired a new way of thinking. The human had shown them something profound, that success and progress weren't always about speed, technology, or intellect. Sometimes, they were about patience, empathy, and understanding. And that simple lesson was transforming the crew in ways they hadn't expected. One of the most noticeable changes was in how the crew interacted with each other. Their teamwork had improved, not because they had been given new instructions or new technology, but because they had learned to communicate better. They had learned to listen to one another, to pay attention to the smaller details in their work and in their relationships. The ship, once just a cold place of business, had started to feel more like a home. And much of that shift could be traced back to the human's influence. The captain, who had been the first to recognize the human's unique qualities, began to encourage the crew to follow his example. "It's not just about the ship anymore," the captain would say. "It's about how we care for each other, how we respect the work we do, and how we work together as a team. The human has shown us that true strength doesn't come from the technology we wield, but from the way we connect with what matters most." The crew had slowly started to embrace this idea. They would spend more time in the common areas, sharing stories, listening to one another, and learning about each other's cultures. They were no longer just a group of people working together, they had become a community. The humans' actions had shown them that the key to success was not in isolating themselves, but in building strong relationships based on mutual respect. It wasn't just the crew that was changing. Even the ship itself seemed to respond to the new energy aboard. The once cold and impersonal walls now seemed to resonate with a quiet warmth. It was as if the humans' respect for the ship had imbued it with a sense of life, and the crew had begun to feel that energy as well. They found themselves taking extra care when they moved through the hallways, as though they were walking through a living space rather than a machine. Every task, no matter how small, was treated with more attention and reverence. One day, as the human worked in the ship's observation deck, the captain joined him. The captain had grown to appreciate the human's quiet wisdom, and today, he wanted to speak with him on a deeper level. The two of them sat near the large windows that looked out onto the stars, the vastness of space stretching endlessly beyond them. "I've been thinking," the captain began, his voice serious. "You've changed everything on this ship. Your influence has been more profound than any of us could have anticipated. You've made us realize that there's more to our work than just results. There's meaning in everything we do." The human smiled faintly, still focused on the stars outside. "I'm just doing my job," he said, his voice calm and unassuming. "It's not about grand gestures. It's about the little things, the ones that people often overlook." The captain nodded thoughtfully. "That's what I've come to understand. I've been so focused on achieving success, on pushing forward and getting things done. But you've shown me that sometimes, success is in the journey. It's about the care we give to what we do and to each other." The human turned toward the captain, meeting his gaze. "Exactly," he said. "It's easy to get caught up in the rush to finish things, to get to the next goal. But if we don't stop and appreciate the present, we miss out on so much. The ship, the work we do, the people we work with, they're all part of this journey. They deserve our full attention, our respect." The captain took a deep breath, the weight of the human's words sinking in. He had always been the leader, the one with the authority, the one who gave the orders. But now, he was seeing things through a different lens. The crew had always followed him, but now they followed a deeper, more meaningful purpose. It wasn't just about reaching the destination, it was about the care, the patience, and the respect along the way. "I think," the captain said slowly, "that this is the key to something bigger. Maybe, it's the key to truly understanding ourselves. We've been so focused on our ship, on its systems and technology, that we've forgotten what makes us who we are, our connection to each other, to our environment, and to everything we've created." The human nodded. "Sometimes, we forget that everything we make, everything we do, is an extension of ourselves. It's not just about control, it's about balance and understanding." The captain's mind raced with possibilities. The ship, the crew, their mission, everything was changing. They were no longer just a group of travelers passing through the galaxy. They were part of something bigger, something more interconnected. And it all started with a simple act of respect, the respect the human had shown to their ship, to each other, and to the work they did. As they sat in silence, watching the stars, the captain realized something profound. They had been in space for so long, surrounded by the infinite vastness of the universe, and yet they had never truly understood the importance of their place in it. The human had opened their eyes to the idea that the universe wasn't just about discovery or exploration, it was about connection. As the months went by, the bond between the crew and the human grew even deeper. He had come to be seen as more than just a janitor. He was a mentor, a guide, a living reminder of the importance of slowing down and appreciating the small things. And though the crew had changed immensely, the human remained humble, never seeking attention or praise. He continued his work with the same quiet grace, focused only on doing his best and helping others to do the same. One day, as the ship approached a distant planet on the edge of a newly charted system, the captain gathered the crew for a final meeting before they disembarked. The mission was nearing its end, and they would soon return to their home base. It was a moment to reflect on their journey, and the captain couldn't help but feel immense pride, not in their success, but in the transformation they had experienced as a team. "We've come a long way," the captain said, his voice steady. "When we first began this journey, we were focused only on our tasks, on getting the job done. But over time, we learned something far more valuable. We learned to respect the journey itself, to appreciate the ship, our work, and most importantly, each other." He paused, his eyes scanning the faces of the crew. "This transformation, this change in how we work and how we see the world, it's thanks to the wisdom of one person. Our human friend. You've taught us all that greatness doesn't come from just being the best at something. It comes from understanding what we're doing and giving it our full attention. It comes from treating everything around us with care and respect, no matter how small or insignificant it may seem." The crew looked at the human, who was quietly standing at the back of the room, his usual humble demeanor not changing. The captain nodded toward him. "Thank you," the captain said simply. "Thank you for showing us that true greatness is found in the smallest moments. Thank you for helping us understand that it's not about what we do, but how we do it." The crew erupted into applause, but the human, ever humble, simply gave a small nod. He wasn't one for grand gestures, and the applause, though appreciated, didn't change the way he viewed the world. His purpose had always been to do his job with care and integrity, and in doing so, he had changed the way an entire crew saw themselves and their ship. The ship had become a reflection of their growth. No longer was it just a vessel of technology and engineering. It had become a symbol of what they had learned, a lesson that transcended the walls of the ship and extended into every part of their lives. As the crew prepared to leave the ship and return to their home base, they knew they were different. They had changed, not just in their work, but in their hearts. They would carry the lessons they had learned into every future mission, every task, and every relationship. They knew that success wasn't just measured by the end goal, but by the care they put into everything they did along the way. And as for the human, his time on the ship had come to an end. But his legacy would live on. His influence would continue to ripple through the crew, the ship, and every mission they undertook. The human had shown them that even in the vastness of space, in the most advanced and technologically sophisticated environments, it was the simplest acts of care and respect that mattered most. His wisdom had left a permanent mark on them all, a mark that would guide their actions and decisions for years to come. As the crew disembarked, the human stood at the doorway, watching them go. He had done his job, and in doing so, he had taught them something that would last far longer than any cleaning or maintenance task. And though his time aboard the ship had ended, the lessons he had imparted would echo in the hearts of the crew forever.